Manglacharan and devotees will start joining in. So, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Danvat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances on behalf of everybody who have joined and are about to join. Prabhuji, we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. We are on Canto 1, Chapter 17, and the verses for today is 24 and 25. I really apologize for giving you an overload, and that also at a short notice yesterday, but we had the Rath Yatra, so everybody were busy with that. So thank you for taking up this extra verse for us. So I hand over to you, and we can do the Manglacharan if you would like us to do it, or
if devotees want to do the Manglacharan and read, then that'd be nice.
Anybody would like to do the Manglacharan? Any volunteers? Prashanatma Prabhu, would you like to do the Manglacharan today? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yeah.
Please, can I get some help maybe today, please? I just not very settled yet.
Okay. I can do the Manglacharan.
Okay.
Unless if you want, I can share my screen and you can see it. Would you like to do that? Okay, fine. I can probably do that. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you everybody for joining in. Hare Krishna Prabhu, I hand over to you.
Okay, sure. So there's two verses, and yeah, that the verses and the purpose are actually quite linked, so it's nice. So I'll just read the Sanskrit, the translation purports of both, and then I'll start. So Canto 1, Chapter 17, verse 24. Tapashocham daya satyam iti pada krite krita adharmam shaistrayo bhagna smaya sangamadestava. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Ki Jai. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. Purport. The deluding energy or material nature can act upon the living beings proportionately in terms of the living beings falling prey to the deluding attraction of Maya. Moths are captivated by the glaring brightness of light, and thus they become prey to the fire. Similarly, the deluding energy is always captivating the conditioned souls to become prey to the fire of delusion, and the Vedic scriptures warn the conditioned souls not to become prey to delusion, but to get rid of it. The Vedas warn us to go not to the darkness of ignorance, but to the progressive path of light. The Lord himself also warns that the deluding power of material energy is too powerful to overcome, but one who completely surrenders unto the Lord can easily do so. But to surrender unto the lotus feet of the Lord is also not very easy. Such surrender is possible by persons of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. These four principles of advanced civilization were remarkable features in the age of Satya. In that age, every human being was practically a qualified Brahmana of the highest order, and in the social orders of life they were all but Paramhamsas, or the topmost in the renounced order. By cultural standing, the human beings were not at all subjected to the deluding energy. Such strong men of character were competent enough to get away from the clutches of Maya. But gradually, as the basic principles of Brahminical culture, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, became curtailed by proportionate development of pride, attachment for women, and intoxication, the path of salvation or the path of transcendental bliss retreated far, far away from human society. With the progression of the age of Kali, people are becoming very proud and attracted to women and intoxication. By the influence of the age of Kali, even a pauper is proud of his penny. The women are always dressed in an overly attractive fashion to victimize the minds of men, and the man is addicted to drinking wine, smoking, drinking tea, and chewing tobacco, etc. All these habits are so-called advancement of civilization, are the root cause of all irreligiosities, and therefore it is not possible to check corruption, bribery, and nepotism. Man cannot check all these evils simply by statutory acts and police vigilance, but he can cure the disease of the mind by the proper medicine, namely advocating the principles of Brahminical culture or the principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. Modern civilization and economic development are creating a new situation of poverty and scarcity with the result of blackmailing the consumer's commodities. If the leaders and the rich men of the society spend 50% of their accumulated wealth mercifully for the misled mass of people and educate them in God consciousness, the knowledge of Bhagavatam, certainly the age of Kali will be defeated in its attempt to entrap the conditioned souls. We must always remember that false pride, or too high an estimation of one's own values of life, undue attachment to women or association with them, and intoxication will divert human civilization from the path of peace, however much the people clamor for peace in the world. The preaching of the Bhagavatam principles will automatically render all men austere, clean both inside and outside, merciful to the suffering, and truthful in daily behavior. That is the way of correcting the flaws of human society, which are very prominently exhibited at the present moment. So read chapter 25 also. Verse 25. Idanim dharmapadiste satyam nirvartayet yataha tam jigrikshya dharmoyam anriteneti daha kalihi. Translation. You are now standing on one leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, Kali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. Purport. The principles of religion do not stand on some dogmas or man-made formulas, but they stand on four primary regulative observances, namely austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. The mass of people must be taught to practice these principles from childhood. Austerity means to accept voluntarily things which may not be very comfortable for the body, but are conducive for spiritual realization. For example, fasting. Fasting twice or 4 times a month is a sort of austerity which may be voluntarily accepted for spiritual realization only, and not for any other purposes, political or otherwise. Fastings which are meant not for self-realization, but for some other purposes are condemned in the Bhagavad Gita 17.5 to 6. Similarly, cleanliness is necessary both for the mind and for the body. Simply bodily cleanliness may help to some extent, but cleanliness of the mind is necessary, and it is effected by glorifying the Supreme Lord. No one can cleanse the accumulated mental dust without glorifying the Supreme Lord. A godless civilization cannot cleanse the mind because it has no idea of God. And for this simple reason, people under such a civilization cannot have good qualifications, however they may be materially equipped. We have to see things by their resultant actions. The resultant action of human civilization in the age of Kali is dissatisfaction. So everyone is anxious to get peace of mind. This peace of mind was complete in the Satya age because of the existence of the above mentioned attributes of the human beings. Gradually, these attributes have diminished in the Treta Yuga to 3/4, in the Dvapara to half, and in this age of Kali to 1/4, which is also gradually diminishing on account of prevailing untruthfulness. By pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. The revival of Bhagavata Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. Jay, thank you for everyone joining. And yeah, these are two very packed purports, but it's nice that the two are quite similar. They're quite interlinked. So that's, I guess, one thing that we have for us. So since we're like almost 3/4 of the way through the chapter, I think, so if we just understand where we are in the Bhagavatam, right? So the chapter is called The Punishment and Reward of Kali. And we started the chapter with Parikshit Maharaj arriving on the scene of where a bull and a cow were speaking to each other. And he's seeing that actually there's a Shudra who's dressed as a king, who's beating the legs of the cow and bull. And seeing this Parikshit Maharaj as the king, he was ready to immediately kill the Shudra. He was just ready, because that was his duty as the king, to protect all the living entities. But before he actioned his judgment, he thought it would be best to acquire some testimonials. Right? He thought it would be best to just find out from the victims, from the bull and cow, what's going on, to make sure he justly actually, kills the Shudra or does whatever he needs to do. And so he asks again and again, like, what's the cause of your distressful situation? Who did this to you? And then the bull starts replying, and what does the bull say? Does the bull go, it's this Shudra, he's the one that's beating our legs. Kill him now, kill him. He's the cause of our suffering. No, the bull starts, the bull is the personality of religion, Dharma himself. And instead of giving an answer which, is very much accustomed to something that I would do if somebody's causing me suffering, I'd be like, no, it's this person. But Dharma, as the bull, is actually going, I don't know. And he starts giving some philosophical answers. He starts going, well, some say that it's the self that is responsible. Some say it's nature that's responsible. Some say it's the superhumans or the demigods that are responsible. And like this is going through different philosophical arguments to say, it could be anyone or anything that's responsible. I don't know. And we can appreciate here how Dharma is echoing what a true devotee's mood is like. Because the true devotee of the Lord understands that whether there's profit or loss, whether there's success or failure, whether there's happiness or suffering, whether something's favorable or unfavorable, it's all sent by God, it's all sent by Krishna. So everything is accepted by the devotee as the God-sent gift. And Parikshit Maharaj recognizes this great position of the bull as the personality of religion. And he appreciates the bull in that way. He appreciates and glorifies. And then he starts talking about the bull's legs, seeing the state that the bull is in. He starts talking about the legs. And so just read the two translations again. So verse 24. In the age of Satya, truthfulness, your 4 legs were established by the 4 principles of austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness. But it appears that the 3 of your legs are broken due to rampant irreligion in the form of pride, lust for women, and intoxication. And then verse 25. You are now standing on 1 leg only, which is your truthfulness, and you are somehow or other hobbling along. But quarrel personified, Gali, flourishing by deceit, is also trying to destroy that leg. When we look at modern society, we can see that modern culture, modern people, modern society claims like, what's the need of all these religions? What's the need of God? We should just be good human beings, you know, be kind to each other, be compassionate, help each other out. That's sufficient. We don't need anything else. They claim that, you know, we just look after thy family and look after thy neighbor. That's enough. You know, you'll be a good human being. Others will also say things like, just leave the world a better place than what it was when you came. You know, with the idea that just do an overall net good to the world based on what you think is good. And these are all nice, noble thoughts. Maybe even good mode of goodness, we'd say, right? That they're quite mode of goodness thoughts, because the idea is to think about others as well, not just think about ourselves, but think about others. Being compassionate, being kind, and so many things. And actually, we could probably go through the qualities of a Vaishnava, or the qualities of the mode of goodness that are described in the Bhagavad Gita, and see that actually, you know, like these people, a lot of these attributes are associated to them. Or these people who have a self-concocted idea of what real religion means, they'd probably tick these boxes. If we look at the 4 principles that we're talking about here, then we could probably say that, yeah, you know, even these, they have these, you know, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness. In fact, maybe even some of these ideas, some of these self-concocted ideas are based on these, maybe even. Maybe not just one, but maybe even all of them. But there's one thing that practically all of these miss, right? And it's very nicely and very strongly actually presented in the Bhagavatam Canto 5. So it's Canto 5, chapter 18, verse 12. Yasyasti bhakti bhagavatya kinchana sarve gunestatra samasate suraha harava bhaktasya kuto mahadguna manorathena sati dhavato bahi. Translation. All the demigods and their exalted qualities, such as religion, knowledge, and renunciation, become manifest in the body of one who has developed unalloyed devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. On the other hand, a person devoid of devotional service and engaged in material activities has no good qualities. Even if he is adept at the practice of mystic yoga or the honest endeavor of maintaining his family and relatives, he must be driven by his own mental speculations and must engage in the service of the Lord's external energy. How can there be any good qualities in such a man? Unquote. So the idea behind this verse is that despite presenting or despite having all these wonderful qualities that may even look like Vaishnava qualities, the Bhagavatam is describing that actually these people, they have no good qualities. Why? Because the impetus of developing those qualities, the impetus of practicing those qualities is coming from a place of mental speculation. It's coming from a place of mental consciousness, right? Or material consciousness rather, and not from God or Krishna consciousness. The problem is that with material consciousness, with thinking from the material modes of nature, even the mode of goodness is actually tinged and contaminated by the other two modes, ignorance and passion. And we can understand it by a very simple sort of example, right? If we take a very pious, very charitable person, right, a very charitable man, imagine he's like very, very rich. He's so charitable. He's freely distributing his wealth as well, right? To charities, to orphanages, to homeless people, to cancer research, and even to his friends and family who are coming to him in times of need. Like, oh, you know, like I just want to set up my business. Please help me out. He says, yeah, here you go. You know, here's a check for $1 million. Now, some of us might remember Charles Dickens's A Christmas Carol, and Ebenezer Scrooge, I think his name was. You know, this person I'm talking about is a complete opposite of him, right? Scrooge would just try to grab as much as he could and just never let anything go. But I'm talking about this guy who's like, take everything, you know? I have more coming all the time anyway, just take everything. Now imagine this person's business starts to fail. He's losing money day by day. Then naturally he's going to try and reach out for help because he wants to reestablish his business. So he goes to his friends, he goes to his contemporaries, the same ones that he once upon a time, he helped them out. And for some reason or other, they say, sorry, I can't help. What's the immediate thought that's going to come to such a person's mind usually? Please, but remember, I helped you back, 10 years ago. I helped you. I need help now, so you please help me. And it's not necessarily a bad expectation. Right? It's quite natural. It's quite normal that we desire reciprocation. We desire and thrive on reciprocation. I mean, relationships are built on reciprocation. But this nature of mode of goodness, right? What originally he had given in charity in a very much compassionate mood, in a very much giving mood, a mood of service, because it came from a mode of goodness and not pure goodness. With the passage of time, oftentimes it happens straight away, but even if it doesn't, it happens with the passage of time. It becomes mixed with that mode of passion and ignorance. Mode of goodness is about giving in charity to the right people without any expectation of return. And he may have given it, we may have given it without any expectation of return. But at some point in time, we then reflect back and think, oh, I gave this and I'm not getting anything in return for it. And that's actually the state of those man-made formulas for the solution of world peace. And the problem there is that these religious principles that they describe as being the man-made formulas is actually without a religion. The religious principles without religion. So as long as these solutions, these formulas, these ideas of world peace are devoid of God consciousness, they can never lead to ultimate success and happiness or peace. Now, oftentimes we just describe dharma as being, duties or religion. But when we look at true dharma, when we look at the true nature of real dharma, it's actually those duties and those religious codes that come from God through parampara. They're actually written, they're actually provided to us by God in disciplic succession. So dharma can never be something self-concocted. That, oh, the world should work like this, because I think this would make things better. Oh, my world, I just prefer it this way. That's my duty. No, all these are, Prabhupada would often describe as cheating religions. Because instead of elevating our consciousness, they're actually making us more and more bodily conscious, whether that's the gross body or the subtle body. Even if outwardly they seem like they're elevating our consciousness, if they're devoid of God, if they're devoid of Krishna, then actually what they're doing is making us more bodily conscious. So it's rooting us actually more and more in the bodily concept of life. And that is what Prabhupada's starting to emphasize in these purports actually. The 4 principles of religion, austerity, cleanliness, mercy, and truthfulness, they're not just acts or principles, but they're to be practiced in connection with the understanding and the practice of the path of self-realization. They're to be practiced in association with God consciousness. And if they're not actually religious principles. And one of the examples given in the purport of verse 25 is that of fasting, right? And there's a verse that is quoted by Prabhupada here, Bhagavad Gita 17.5-6. So I'll just read that one out. Translation: those who undergo severe austerities and penances not recommended in the scriptures, performing them out of pride and egoism, who are impelled by lust and attachment, who are foolish and who torture the material elements of the body, as well as the supersoul dwelling within, are to be known as demons. Unquote. So many people fast for different reasons, right? Some people fast for, having a good physique. Some people fast for weight loss. Some people fast to make a show of their body, right? Or to make a show of the austerity that they're performing. Some people fast for some political propaganda, right? But real austerity actually comes from doing things in connection with the Lord's instructions, with the mood of wanting to satisfy the Lord and living life abiding by the scriptures. For example, we can take the Ekadashi fast. Right? Why do we perform Ekadashi? Because by fasting on Ekadashi, one is, it's directly pleasing to the Lord. But it's also helping our process of self-realization. It's also helping our spiritual path. It's conducive to Krishna consciousness. And if we're performing it properly, then it actually frees up more time for us to remember and read about Krishna. So if it's not in relation to Krishna, then actually all these activities, whether it's practicing austerity, practicing mercy, or anything like that, is actually entangling us more and more in the bodily concept of life, even if we see some material benefit. So the real codes of dharma is to practice these 4 principles in connection to a God-conscious practice. The 4 principles don't themselves develop bhakti, right? So if one is just practicing austerity, one is just practicing truthfulness or mercy, it's not that they're devotional. It's actually a foundation for practicing bhakti. Because one who practices these 4 principles, only such a person can we say is actually come to the stage of a human form of life. And Prabhupada explicitly calls it out as advanced civilization. Only such a person can be called as the true advanced civilization. So these 4 principles form a basis, form a foundation for our development of spiritual life. Without these 4, we can't practice true spiritual life. But we see in these verses how with the passage of time, the 4 principles are slowly but surely being destroyed. And in fact, in Kali Yuga, 3 of them have already been destroyed. In verse 24, we learn about how in Satya Yuga, all 4 of the pillars were manifest in full potency. So much so that all the people, all the human civilization, were known to be Brahminical and known to be Paramhamsas, the highest order in the Varnashram system. But as Satya Yuga progressed into Treta Yuga, then one of the legs became destroyed. And that leg was the leg of austerity. And then as Treta Yuga slowly became Dwapara Yuga. Then cleanliness became destroyed. From Dwapara to Kali, mercy got destroyed. And now, even in Kali Yuga, as time progresses, even though there's only one leg remaining, that of truthfulness, even that is quickly being diminished, actually. And at the end of the purport for verse 25, Prabhupada actually talks about the root cause, actually talks about it in both, actually, 24 and 25. He talks about the root cause of what spoils these pillars of religion. He says, second to last sentence, by pride, either artificial or real, the resultant action of austerity is spoiled. By too much affection for female association, cleanliness is spoiled. By too much addiction to intoxication, mercy is spoiled. And by too much lying propaganda, truthfulness is spoiled. Right, so that's the second to last sentence of the purport 2, verse 25. So both purports of 24 and 25 actually talk about this specific line quite a lot, actually. And it's interesting because Prabhupada has really emphasized this point in both purports. So it's clear that Prabhupada saw these as important points that we should really try to understand and go deeper in. And it's nice to remind ourselves, of course, if there was a class yesterday on verse 24, then we would have had 2 consecutive sessions on this, to remind us of it. But today we'll just focus on going through them as 2 purports in one, right? So there's 4 things that Prabhupada's calling out here, right? And we'll take them in turn. So first one is talking about how pride spoils austerity, right? How pride destroys austerity. Now, one who's prideful, right? They may well take on many artificial forms of austerity, like how we talked about before. There might be, fasting for having a good physique and all these different things. But naturally, in the consciousness, they're thinking, I'm so great. I'm the all-in-all person. Look at me, I do intermittent fasting. Look at me, I'm such an independent person. I'm such an independent man or woman in the world. Look how I have 3 jobs and I run a business. So austere with their time. They're doing so much with their time. Or a new sort of thing is also like, see how I can perform all these yoga mudras and postures and everything like that. See how flexible I am. Or see how I can hold my breath for such a long period of time. All these things are seen as austerities or great things, achievements in the world. But actually, these sorts of austerities, these sorts of practices to attain something like this, it's not really an austerity because it fuels our pride. Mahaprabhu gives us the real austerity of life, actually, from the Shikshashtakam. Trinadapi sunichena tarur api saheshnana amanina madidena kirtinya sadahari. Mahaprabhu is giving us true austerity, which is to be more humble than a blade of grass, more tolerant than a tree, and probably one of the most difficult ones to practice, giving respect to all and expecting none in return. Let's try and find somebody who is lacking in God consciousness, who is able to perform this level of austerity. It'll be near impossible. But this is the real austerity for not just devotees, but for any spiritualist. Because this austerity of developing humility, this austerity of recognizing that Krishna is all great, and I'm not even the size of a dust particle in front of him. And then respecting all of Krishna's creations, all of the living entities in that mood. That's the real austerity, which which is conducive to Krishna consciousness. Why? Because that sort of austerity actually curbs our pride. It destroys our false ego. That pride, that false ego roots us in that mood, in that idea of being, I am this body, not a spirit soul. But developing this sort of austerity, practicing this sort of austerity, takes us away from that, because then we're going, yes, you know, I'm a servant. I'm nobody great. I'm just a servant. So real austerity is not about it's not about fasting from food, or not having 6 hours of sleep, or not wearing nice clothes, or avoiding sex life. That's not real austerity. The real austerity is developing that mood of being a servant. Because naturally, when we develop the mood of being a servant, then we realize that everything we do needs to be of service to Krishna and the devotees. So then naturally, we'll start picking the other austerities of Krishna consciousness up. Okay, this is good for Krishna consciousness. This is what Krishna desires. I'm just a servant. I should just practice what Krishna wants me to practice. So that's number one. Second one is how too much affection for the opposite gender spoils cleanliness. Now, cleanliness, we understand this. We can see that there's two forms of cleanliness. One is internal and one is external. Externally, we'll say that cleanliness is next to godliness. But internally, we can say that cleanliness is the source of godliness. At the heart of cleanliness, whether it's internal or external, is this idea, especially for a devotee, that the purity that it develops, it allows and empowers us to associate with the all pure Krishna. Krishna is all pure. For us to be able to associate with the all pure, we also have to be free of contamination. Free of contamination means to be clean. Externally, it's much easier to understand and see this, because if we put on our Krishna conscious goggles, then we can see the world is just a playground for Krishna, especially the home, the temple. And so naturally, if we think, okay, everything is Krishna's playground, then we wouldn't want anything to be unclean, because we wouldn't want to place Krishna or have Krishna roam around in an unclean place. So naturally, we would clean. And then we can think of the body as well. We call the body to be a temple of the Lord. So naturally, then we'd clean that also. And we understand, at least those who are a bit introspective, who are maybe even associated to a bit of psychology, or have read up on the mind and things like that, then we understand that actually our external environment affects our consciousness. So if the external environment is unclean, then naturally it's going to fill our consciousness with some dirty things. So the external cleanliness is a lot easier to understand, it's a lot easier to see, in one sense. I mean, how many of us like to live in a dirty, filthy place? No, right? But then internally, we can take the example or analogy of a bedroom, right? Those of you who have children, who have had children, who have nieces and nephews, you'll be able to understand this very, very much, right? Or those of us who don't, we'll have to go on a memory trip back to when we were kids, right? A bedroom for a kid, how messy is it? Clothes scattered everywhere, stationery is in all parts of the room, books, electronic devices come under the feet. Wherever you step, you just can't put when you're walking in the room, you're struggling to find the carpet or the floor, because everywhere you look, everywhere you step, you're stepping on something that is not the floor. Right? The room's in shambles. So untidy, so unclean, so dirty. And what two things really happen in that sort of situation? One is, regardless of whether you're the one who lives in the room or the parent who's coming to try and find something in the room, you'll never find what you're looking for. You just know it's in the room somewhere. Actually, even that you probably don't even know. And the second thing is that if you just leave it as it is, then all that's going to happen is everything in the room is just going to amass dust. It's just going to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. And in the same way, our minds are actually full of so much dirt, so much disorganization because of the lifetimes and lifetimes of filthy material desires that have filled our mind. From this lifetime alone, let alone from all these other lifetimes also. So imagine the mind being like that bedroom, so cluttered of all these things that we don't actually want in the room either. We don't want it in the mind. And even if we want it nice and organized, like when I'm thinking about work, I just think about work. When I'm thinking about family, I just think about family. But what tends to happen? You're at work, you're doing the operation, or you're, testing, checking somebody's pulse or whatever, and you're thinking, oh yeah, when I go home, I need to buy some bread because I forgot to add that to my shopping list. All these things come up in our consciousness. The desire for a house, the desire for a TV, the desire for this comfort, that comfort, everything, right? It takes us away from focusing, it takes us away from thinking. And even as devotees, we've complicated our lives so much with these desires because we entertain them or we try to satisfy them. And then we justify it saying, Prabhu, Mataji, it's for Krishna. And then we're also the same people that will then complain to the same Prabhu and Mataji that will go, oh, Prabhu, you don't understand, there's so much going on in my life. There's this thing, I bought a new TV and the remote isn't working, so I have to go and sort that out. I just bought a brand new fridge, and for some reason it's not working, so I have to call the mechanics again. All these things. We're the ones introducing all this complication into our life, and then we're the ones that are complaining. And then we go, Prabhu, I just don't have time to read and chant, because I've got all these things going on. The problem isn't that we don't have time. The problem is that we have too much in our mind. So we need to declutter. We need to clean our minds. And the way to clean it is by attentive and focused chanting of the Mahamantra. It's by attentive and focused hearing and reading from the scriptures. So many of us multitask. But is that multitasking cleaning our hearts and minds of the distractions of the world? Or are we multitasking with these things because we think, I have to be Krishna conscious, so I need to listen to something. I need to read something, but I don't have time, so I'm going to do it whilst I'm doing something else. Yeah, we're getting benefit from it because we're associating with the transcendental sound vibrations. But how much benefit are we really getting from it? Are we maximizing the benefit of the cleaning process that Shravanam Kirtanam can give us? So we have to do these things daily, right? Chanting daily, which I'm sure all of us do. But hearing and reading daily is an absolute must, because that is actually helping us clean the mind. Just as if you wanted to keep the house clean, you would clean daily. The same way, to keep the mind clean, to at least start the cleaning process, we have to do it daily. So how does association of the opposite gender or affection for the opposite gender affect cleanliness? Because too much attachment or too much infatuation with the opposite sex develops more and more of the material desires, actually. The highest we know is sex life. That's the highest. But even subtly, even if you're not infatuated by the sex life, even subtly it actually causes a lot of damage, actually. We don't realize it, but it develops other material desires inside us also. The desire to look nice and beautiful, wearing makeup, as in one of the purports, Prabhupada describes that in our very high and crude sense, also wearing very revealing clothes. For men, this idea of having six-pack abs, strong muscles flexing everywhere. Or even more subtly, this idea of having a big position in the material world. Because these all, as His Holiness Kadamakanana Maharaj describes, the material world is a backdrop. Sorry, sex life is a backdrop for the material world. Everything stems from that, but to different degrees. All these material desires are a form of that. We only understand sex life as being a male-female sort of sex life, or two people or two beings coming together and enjoying each other's company. But actually, sex life in a subtle sense, in a lustful sense, is actually just wanting to enjoy the material energy. Then the third, intoxication destroys mercy. Mercy in its raw form means that we're putting the needs and the concerns of somebody else before our own. And we can see Prabhupada's life was exemplary of this, right? He could have stayed in Vrindavan, but he decided that, okay, no, the needs of the world who were bereft of Krishna was more important than my needs. And he was so merciful, so compassionate that he suffered on the Jalduta. He shared a fridge with meat. And in fact, he even did things that he was meant to leave behind as a sannyasi. He got his disciples married. He helped his disciples learn how to cook, how to wear a dhoti, how to wear a sari even. But when we look at ourselves, actually, most of us, to some degree, are actually so much more self-conscious. We're so much more self-centered, impersonal in some way, shape, or form already, without intoxications, right? When it comes to this idea that, okay, this Prabhu, this Mataji, somebody has reached out to us asking for help, at least I say for myself, my instinct is like, I don't want to do it. And then the Krishna conscious philosophy comes in. No, compassion to others, we should help each other out. It's the Vaishnava thing to do. So the intelligence is then kicking in and going, okay, you should do something. You should help out. But actually, naturally, we just are so self-centered, so selfish by nature. And what intoxications does is actually it enhances that self-centeredness. It makes us more engrossed in that idea of the self, or satisfying our desires. And we might term it as being compassionate to our needs and ourselves. But the problem is that if we're so focused on ourself, which is heightened by intoxication, then where's the room to be instruments of mercy towards others? So mercy being a form of expressing sympathy, or supporting others, being charitable towards others. In the highest form, it's about being charitable and compassionate for the soul, not just the body and the mind, but for the soul also. But if we're so intoxicated in ourself, we already are. That's the natural instinct because of the lifetimes of conditioning. But it's heightened by intoxication. And in that case, how can we ever think of being compassionate towards others? So if we're addicted to intoxications, how can we truly be merciful? All right, that's the idea with the third one. Then the fourth one, which is too much lying propaganda spoils truthfulness. I'm conscious of time, but in, I believe it's Nectar of Instruction, Rupa Goswami describes how we should be straightforward in our dealings, meaning we should be simple. right? Simplicity. We should have simplicity now inside us. What does simplicity mean? It means we're not duplicitous, right? We're truly being simple. We're truly being straightforward and honest. But the thing is, we can only be truthful to that extent if we have no ulterior motive. Because if we don't have an ulterior motive, we don't feel the need to lie. We don't feel the need to cheat. We don't feel the need to hide anything because our life's an open book. We're presenting the truth, whether it's good or bad, advantageous or disadvantageous. We're presenting the truth because then we know, okay, if I present, I've got nothing to lose. I've only got things to gain. And actually, if we're practicing things like cheating, things like lying, and all these different duplicitous behaviors, and we're thinking that we're renouncing things externally, like maybe, okay, we've left family, I no longer stay with family, I'm dedicating myself full-time to the temple, I'm not even working outside, I'm just becoming a brahmachari or brahmacharini, I've given up the desire to have a family and all these things, or simple food, I just make khichdi in the morning, just eat once. Externally, we could do all these things and make a show of being renounced, of being simple. But if we're lying, if we're cheating, if we're hiding what's truly inside us, right, then actually we haven't really captured the essence of what it means to be simple or what it means to be renounced. Because that is actually something we have in the heart, where we're so simple, so renounced, so honest and truthful, that even though I'm doing something bad, maybe I've done some horrendous thing that if the devotee world found out, they would criticize me to no end. But if we're able to be truthful about that, then we can actually say we're renounced. Because the distress that comes, or the happiness that comes from it, we accept it wholeheartedly. So we can see also, right, linking it back to the context of the verses, how Kali is trying very hard to destroy this leg of truthfulness. All around us, we can see that there's, lying propaganda is everywhere. TV, newspapers, magazines, radios, movies, everything is full of lying propaganda. And if they're not outright lying, they're still lying because they're promoting this culture, this mood that if you're not up to date with the latest news, if you're not up to date with the latest movies or the TV shows on Netflix, you're missing out, Kritika Mataji. You're missing out. Work colleagues, friends, family members even would be like, oh, you haven't seen that show, you must watch it. But actually, the greatest truth, the greatest happiness is only found in Krishna consciousness. Krishna is described as the absolute truth. There's a statement in the Vishnu Puran that says the Para Brahman, or the absolute truth, in his human form is Krishna. So actually, as devotees, we know, we can understand that we're not the ones missing out. It's actually those who aren't coming to Krishna who are missing out. But Maya has empowered Kali to such a degree that the whole world is addicted to all these forms of untruth. And the devotees who are absorbed or trying to be absorbed in reading and chanting and focusing on Krishna, in serving the devotees, in coming to kirtans, we're seen as religious fanatics. And actually, Kali's been empowered so much that Kali can even penetrate the hearts of the devotees. Oh, do you really think Krishna consciousness will give you happiness? Oh, Nikhil Prabhu, do you really think Krishna consciousness is your topmost form of happiness and success, and that you won't ever feel misery in the material world? Nah, it's just austerity. Come on, come watch a bit of TV. Watch a bit of the TV serial. Years ago you used to go for kitty parties with your friends. Why don't you call them up? Invite them over, have a kitty party with your old friends. It won't do you any harm. In fact, actually, you'll enjoy it. You'll have some fun in all this austerity of Krishna consciousness. The deceit of Kali even penetrates the devotees. And the root of that, as Prabhupada says in the last line of the purport, the revival of Bhagavad Dharma can save human civilization from falling prey to evils of all description. We're not associating with the Bhagavad Dharma. We're not reviving the Bhagavad Dharma even in our own hearts. Then of course Kali is going to be able to penetrate us. As devotees, we talk about the 4 regulative principles and the 16 rounds, right? But that's the bare minimum. It's nice that we do these, but we mistake doing them as thinking that we're sincere, serious devotees, that if I just do these things, these 5 things, that's it, I can be a serious, sincere devotee. But if we really want to make strides in our Krishna consciousness, if we really want Kali's attempt at penetrating our heart to just fall on death's end, we have to go to the root of what is behind these 5 things, what is behind the 4 regulative principles and these 16 rounds. And that is these 4 principles: austerity, cleanliness, mercy, truthfulness. When we revive these 4 things in our hearts and spread these 4 things, that's when we can really become serious and sincere devotees. That's when we'll really go fast in our Krishna consciousness. So we have to make a conscious effort to do these, right? So I'll just end with just go through the 4 things again, right? If we make a conscious effort to practice austerity, how? By developing or practicing humility and developing the mood of servitude. Second, developing or cultivating cleanliness, both externally by keeping the environment around us, the house, the home, the temple, our bodies clean, but also by consciously endeavoring to remember and associate with Krishna's names, literatures, sound vibrations for the internal cleansing process. The third thing, which is mercy, developing the attitude of serving in others' distress, putting others' distress before our own, especially the spiritual distress. And the fourth, practicing truthfulness by becoming simple, by becoming non-duplicitous in our dealings and behavior, by becoming an open book with our life, right? If we practice these 4 things in connection with Krishna, then we'll, 1, protect that leg of Dharma as much as we can. But secondly, we will really go fast in our Krishna consciousness. So then there, I'm conscious we're over time already. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shubha Ki Jai.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for this fantastic session and making all these. So we've been hearing about austerity and cleaning and mercy and truthfulness, the whole chapter, but you put it in perspective, and it was nice because when we read the purport, I couldn't associate cleanliness, intoxication with mercy. So with giving examples and going through each and every one so deeply, it has clarified a lot of doubts in my mind. Are there any questions or comments from the group? I see we have a lot of devotees today and new ones, so I'd like to first welcome them all. So we have Bipin Kumar, Prabhuji, we have Shreya, we have Smithal, Matji. Thank you all for joining the group, and there are some who come who are transit in this group. So thank you all for joining in today and encouraging our speaker today. let us all unmute and chant the 3 times Hari Bol to welcome them. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Thank you. So let's open it up to, I know we have exhausted our time, but we can take few questions. I think Prabhuji, you have the time. Yeah, Prabhuji has the time. So are there any questions or comments from the group? We also have Aishwarya Mahajan who has joined us. So thank you very much for joining. Yes, Arya Govind Prabhu, kindly go ahead, unmute and ask your question, please. And Smithal Mataji as well. Smithal.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandvat Pranam. Please accept our humble obeisances. All goes to Shri Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for this wonderful session. I was just thinking when you were talking about desires, like desires is desiring is supposed to be natural because it's a quality which we have inherited from Krishna. But the same desire, when we do it for the body, then it becomes perverted. So, like, how do we, like, desire is natural, but to desire for something temporary, something material is prohibition, is some kind of prohibition. So how do we manage these?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for the question. I'm sure you have your own reflection on it, but just what I guess one thought comes to mind here. It's not necessarily a prohibition. It's more of the fact that it's the consciousness we do it in, right? Like, for example, even as devotees, we still eat, right? We still eat food. Isn't that for the body? Yeah, it is. But the idea is that we're eating not because we want to nourish the body for the sake of enjoying the body. We're eating the food to nourish the body so that we can perform service and practice Krishna consciousness. So in the same way, yeah, we have so many desires, but it's like, yeah, we connect them to Krishna, but we should always mentally check in. And this is something my mentors actually mentioned many times before. One person can buy a car, say a brand new Tesla. Another person can do the same. But one person has actually bought it because they want to use it in service of Krishna. Another person's bought it because they're saying they want it for Krishna, but actually they just want to show off the Tesla. Right? So it's the consciousness. We can check in that, okay, thousands of desires come into our mind in every day, every minute. But how many of those desires, if we introspect, are actually for Krishna? And those are the ones that we should pursue in seriousness. There might be desires that come up that, aren't for Krishna, but we're so like attached to those desires that, okay, I really want that Tesla. I'm getting too agitated without that Tesla. If it's an austerity to not have the Tesla that is taking you away from thinking of Krishna, maybe it's best that you do buy the Tesla, provided it's in your means, because then it calms your mind down, right? Because then you can actually focus on, okay, yeah, you've bought something, it's actually for you, it's actually for your material desires to satisfy that, but actually it's helping you in Krishna consciousness because it's giving you the mental stability to. So we can check in like that. So one is it directly for Krishna, or am I getting too agitated by the desire that it's actually taking me away from thinking of Krishna? Therefore, instead of should I buy it, should I not buy it, should I buy it, should I not buy it, just buy it, because if you don't buy it, you're thinking, should I buy it, should I not buy it? So just take one of the sides that makes you less distracted from Krishna and go with it. So just my thoughts. It'd be nice to hear your reflections, bro, because you always have them. So
No, I just did, when you were talking about desires and then materialistic desires. So I was just going through these questions through in my mind. Yes, Prabhu, quite as you said, the way we use the things, like Prabhupada used to say, microphone, it's a wonderful instrument, but he used to use it in dictaphone. So he's used dictaphone, he used it in recording the tapes, whatever we have recordings, he used it in the service. He didn't say no to technology or no to buying new things, but he completely, more than 100% used it for Krishna service. So that is the trick. But there are some things, as you said, that which doesn't have a direct connections to Krishna consciousness, our own improvement, which should be avoided. For example, I'll give an example. Like from the childhood, I've been a little bit inclined to watching cricket. Yeah, and even now, I must admit that I have some inclination because it has come through all the last 50 years, but it has no direct connection to Krishna consciousness because cricket and that doesn't have any connection unless it doesn't have any. So we have to somehow shed that inclination because it doesn't have a direct connection. Although it may be difficult because you are habituated in your mind that it gives some kind of a pleasure by even scrolling the news and then keep checking the scores or even check how much this. So it is an addiction, sort of addiction, but it has no connection to Krishna consciousness. So it is best to forego it, and then slowly but surely, Krishna willing, it'll be foregone, and then you'll say, oh, what I was doing, I was just stupidly wasting my time on something which was so useless. Yes,
Bro, cricket is Krishna conscious because the ball is like the material desire and the batsman is like Krishna trying to bat away the material desires in our mind. See? No, I know what you're saying.
No, you're just saying like Prabhupada, Prabhupada used to connect anything to Krishna. Like, once devotees were walking on the shore of a sea coast, and then a big ship was being pulled by a small ship. And then Prabhupada asked, so what is this? Devotees did not relate it to Krishna consciousness, but Prabhupada could relate to Krishna consciousness. And I think there are some instances that he used to watch Charlie Chaplin on some occasions in the going by flight or something. So, but you see, he had the connection of everything material to connect it to Krishna. But I don't have that connection. So it's better, to avoid some things, and than to get, going to deeper and deeper into those addictions. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ari Govind Prabhu. We will now open it up to Smita.
Hi Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for extending the invite. It is so nice to hear you. I'm so sorry I cannot put camera on. I was cooking. So Prabhu, my question is about, so it was really beautiful the way you put together the minimum criteria and something where we have to aspire to go as devotees. Because sometimes that is what even I feel. There are like 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. I'm really doing good. Actually, that's the minimum. So, and I was reflecting while you were saying mainly about mood and the way we should be inside, the inside cleanliness. And every time, whenever, so I have experienced this about myself, that when we have these conversations and I feel like, oh my God, when I spoke that I was so rude, or, maybe I was so boastful about myself. And then I should actually improve. And then after a couple of months, again, I find doing the same thing. Oh my God, I was so rude. I'm so boastful about myself. And again, so it keeps on happening. So there is no end to, there is no end to this. There is always something which I find that, oh, there is so much to improve. There is so much to, there is a long way to go. So there is always a guilt, one thing, but there is always this this feeling that, oh, maybe you are really, and I check my WhatsApp messages. What did I write to Prabhu? Oh my God, how did I wrote that? So I'm just thinking that for me at least, it is infinite. There's long journey, and whenever I utter anything, I just feel that, oh, maybe I'm just messing it up this time as well. But Hare Krishna, how do in this circumstances, there are 4 things which you mentioned we have to do in this verses. How do you get there? It feels so impossible to someone like me.
Sure. Thank you, Smith Mataji. And I think, at least I speak for myself, but I'm sure most of the devotees on this call have the same problem with probably with all of them. So the thing is that, remember, these 4 that I described, see, Prabhupada always gave us the goal. He gave us the topmost thing that we need to aspire for.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us will be very close to it in some areas, you know, truthful, maybe like from childhood, you've always been truthful, you know, so adapting to the ultimate truth, Krishna, comes very naturally and easy for you. Others who have grown up will be like stealing a chocolate here, stealing that friend's toys and going, no, I don't know where the toy is, you know. So depending on our backgrounds, depending on our own conditionings, we'll be at different sort of ranks in each of them. But the question isn't how big the gap is. The question is, what are you doing to try and take the next step in the gap, to shorten the gap? That's where our focus should be. In the grand scheme of things, we know, okay, this is the goal. I'm here, this is the goal. But from a day-to-day consciousness, our conscious effort should be, let me take the next step. Okay, now I'm stable here. Let me take the next step, next step, next step. And actually, before you know it, you'll climb quite quickly. Then you look back 10, 15 years to this call and be like, that was me, Smita, back then? I didn't know I would say all these things, right? You'll actually see that experience, that transformation in yourself. And even if you just go back to a couple of years ago, before you joined Krishna consciousness, you'll see that there's a massive difference in your own behavior from back then to now. And the other thing I'd share is that there's a process from going from one extreme to the other, right? What are these 2 extremes? The first extreme is unconsciously doing something negative, right? Let's take a simple example of criticizing, right? Somebody's just told us something, we go speak to a friend, you know, this guy, he just did this to me, you know, it's so bad, like, how could he do this? You know, how could he say like this? Like, he's such a bad person. We unconsciously criticize. That's one extreme. The other extreme, that same person did the same thing. It's okay, what's my learning here, Krishna? Okay, you know, sorry, Prabhu, sorry, Mataji, I'll try and improve for next time. 2 extremes, right? We're in the middle somewhere, right? Because as devotees, we're now conscious that we shouldn't criticize. But we were there at some point. We were unconsciously criticizing at some point. Through the process, we have learned that, hang on, criticizing is bad. Oh my gosh, I just criticized. But we still do it. Like you said, right? Month after month, you keep doing it, you keep repeating. But slowly, as you are more conscious and cultivating the attitude of consciously trying to change that habit, you'll come to the next stage, which is, I want to criticize. Okay, you know, I shouldn't criticize, but in your mind, you'll be criticizing. You won't text it, you won't say it, but in your mind, you'll criticize. You start typing the text even, but then be like, no, I don't want to say it, delete. And then you'll come to a stage after some time, okay, you know, he did that, Prabhu did that, he said that, he shouldn't have done this. It's okay, what to do. But then eventually the goal, oh, Krishna sent this devotee to purify me. I'm sorry, Prabhu, I'm sorry, Mataji, you know, please forgive me, I'll do something better next time. See, it's a journey. Just in itself, it's a journey. But that's the beautiful part of Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is there to connect us with Krishna, but it's a transformational process. It's a spiral, actually. I was speaking to one of the devotees on the call actually quite recently about this. It's a spiral. At times, our spiritual life is going nicely, so we're at the top of the spiral. And then, oh, you know, spiritual life is so difficult, so difficult, so difficult. But then it picks up again. But when it picks up this time, we've improved from the last time that we went through that cycle. And like this, we slowly, as long as our trajectory is in the direction of Krishna, then the spirals will keep coming. Our lows will be lower than the previous lows, but the spiral means that when we come back, we'll be higher each and every time. We'll be closer and closer to Krishna, as long as we are consciously making the effort to go there. So those are a few thoughts. I hope that helps.
Very good. Thank you so much, Guru. Very nice. Thank you.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Prabhuji. And I really liked the explanation of the spiral. We are continuously improving. And as long as we are continuously improving, I'm saying it's not good to bitch about anybody, but as long as we are continuously improving, I think we are on the right path. Thank you for that encouragement. We'll take the last question from Vishaka Mataji. Mataji, kindly unmute and ask your question.
Hare Krishna. I think mostly you answered it, but I just, it's a question or a thought, yeah. As Prabhu mentioned, the habits, certain habits, like as he mentioned cricket, we all have certain habits which we have carried it from our past. And we know that we shouldn't be, because we are following this and we want to progress spiritually, we want to evolve. But it's just a comment. Isn't it better to sort of whatever that habit may be, rather than stopping it immediately, like, okay, cricket is not because it's all karmic and it's nothing related. Yes, we can relate it a bit with Krishna, the Krishna's pastime, but you can't do that constantly when you're watching a cricket. Isn't it better that once we are aware of, and then gradually, okay, somebody is watching cricket like every day, then decides to, I won't make it every day, maybe sometimes when there's an important match, and then gradually, the test, we start losing the test as we progress spiritually. So if it happens naturally, whereby you don't even realize that you have stopped doing what you shouldn't be doing, isn't it that the best way, rather than like, okay, this is not good for me, I'm not going to do that, and then the heart is there, so it's renouncing, but you're being attached to it. Just a comment, or what do you say, suggestion on this?
Okay. Thank you, Vishak Mataji. And there's two ways you could see it, right? One is what I was sharing about the Tesla, right? If your mind is so agitated, like if we just take the cricket example, if your mind is so agitated that even whilst you're chanting, you're thinking, oh, the cricket match is on, India versus Pakistan, then just watch, because Krishna's not going to come to your mind whilst chanting, right? Because that's where your heart is, as you mentioned. That's where your desire is lying. And I think you nailed it. The taste, it's the point of the taste. Guru Maharaj would always say that actually, instead of thinking about, oh, I've got this desire, that desire, just engage in service. Because naturally, when we engage our whole time, 24/7 service, then sure, there'll be pockets where we're going, oh, I want to watch that cricket match. Okay, you might do it, right? But if you've got so much service that you're engaged in, then you're going to develop the taste for the service. And then you're not just naturally overcoming the lower tendencies, the lower desires, but you're encouraging the higher taste to come. Because that argument, I'm not saying that you're presenting it in this mood, but that argument of, oh, let it come naturally, is an argument that we always hear on the street. Oh, I don't practice religion. To me, Krishna comes spontaneously. I practice my spiritual path if it comes naturally to me. But if we rely on natural occurrence, then the danger is that it doesn't happen. So we have to make a conscious endeavor to encourage and promote more of our time, more of our energy, more of our effort, more of our consciousness to be engaged in Krishna's service. And if the desire comes, if it's strong, fine. Have that, binge day on cricket. Binge day, not a binge week, yeah? But equally, we should endeavor to try and reduce it also. So don't be so austere artificially, but be austere intelligently. If it's so agitating, better you engage for some time in whatever the activity is. If it's not agitating, then you don't need to engage in it. So don't test Maya in that way, is my view. Or at least, yeah, that's how I would kind of see it. But no, thank you for your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for that explanation. I think, that was an excellent advice. So I know we have really overshot on our time. So we'll quickly close this session. Can I please request Arya Govind Prabhu? Prabhu, can you please end this session? Hare Krishna.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for all your thoughts and views on this subject. With wonderful discussion. A lot of things came out, and then how we improve our day-to-day Krishna consciousness, and then how to apply them on a practical basis. Thank you so much, Prabhu. Let's all chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra once in glorification of His grace. Bhaja Govindam Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Ram,
Hare
Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Vancha
Kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhyo eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Grace Bhaja Govindam Prabhu ki jai.
ISKCON Eldoret ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all
Hare
for
Krishna.
tuning in. This session is every day at the same time, same link. So feel free to join in if you have the time. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so
Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for ending the session.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.